Patriotic Selfishness from The True Grandeur of Nations by Charles Sumner. Out of the Book of Patriotism, Young Folks Library, Volume 18. Charles Sumner was born in Boston, January 6, 1811. He graduated from Harvard in 1830. The invasion of Mexico kindled his indignation, and made the text for his noble arraignment of war in his 4th of July address in 1845. He served in the U.S. Senate from 1851 until his death in 1874. There is an influence which stimulates war and interferes with the natural attractions of peace. I refer to a selfish and exaggerated love of country, leading to its physical aggrandizement and political exaltation at the expense of other countries, and in disregard of the principles of true greatness. Our minds, nursed by the literature of antiquity, have imbibed the narrow sentiment of heathen patriotism. Exclusive love for the land of birth was part of the religion of Greece and Rome. It is an indication of the lowness of their moral nature that this sentiment was so material, as well as exclusive in its character. The oracle directed the returning Roman to kiss his mother, and he kissed the Mother Earth. Agamemnon, according to Achilles, on regaining his home after a perilous separation of more than 10 years at the siege of Troy, before addressing his family, his friends, his countrymen, first saluted Argos. By your leave, lords, first Argos I salute. The schoolboy cannot forget the cry of the victim of Varus, which was to stay the descending fasces of the lictor. I am a Roman citizen. Nor those other words echoing through the darkest past. How sweet it is to die for one's country. The Christian cry did not rise, I am a man. The Christian ejaculation did not swell the soul, how sweet it is to die for duty. The beautiful genius of Cicero, at times instinct with truth almost divine, did not ascend to that highest heaven, where is taught that all mankind are neighbors and kindred, and that the relations of fellow countrymen are less holy than those of fellow man. To the love of universal man may be applied those words by which the great Roman elevated his selfish patriotism to a virtue when he said that country alone embraced all the charities of all. Attach this admired phrase for a moment to the single idea of country, and you will see how contracted are its charities compared with the worldwide circle of Christian love, whose neighbor is the suffering man, though at the farthest pole. Such a sentiment would dry up those fountains of benevolence, which now diffuse themselves in precious waters in distant, unenlightened lands, bearing the blessings of truth to the icy mountains of Greenland and the coral islands of the Pacific Sea. It has been a part of the policy of rulers to encourage this exclusive patriotism, and the people of modern times have all been quickened by the feeling of antiquity. I do not know that any one nation is in a condition to reproach another with this patriotic selfishness. All are selfish. Men are taught to live not for mankind, but only for a small portion of mankind. The pride, vanity, ambition, brutality even, which we rebuke in individuals, are accounted virtues when displayed in the name of country. Among us, the sentiment is active, while it derives new force from the point with which it has been expressed. An officer of our Navy, one of the so-called heroes nurtured by war, whose name has been praised in churches, has gone beyond all Greek, all Roman example. Our country, be she right or wrong, was his exclamation. A sentiment dethroning God and enthroning the devil, whose flagitious character should be rebuked by every honest heart. Unlike this officer was the virtuous Andrew Fletcher of Saltoun in the days of the English Revolution, of whom it was said that he would lose his life to serve his country, but would not do a base thing to save it. Our country, our whole country, and nothing but our country are the words which, falling first from the lips of an eminent American, have often been painted on banners and echoed by the voices of innumerable multitudes. Cold and dreary, narrow and selfish would be this life, if nothing but our country occupied our souls. If the thoughts that wander through eternity, if the infinite affections of our nature were restrained to that spot of earth where we have been placed by the accident of birth. I do not inculcate indifference to country. We incline by a natural sentiment to the spot where we were born, to the fields that witnessed the sports of childhood, to the seat of youthful studies, and to the institutions under which we have been trained. The finger of God writes all these things in indelible colors upon the heart of man, so that in the anxious extremities of death, he reverts in fondness to early associations and longs for a draught of cold water from the bucket in his father's well. This sentiment is independent of reflection, for it begins before reflection, grows with our growth, and strengthens with our strength. It is blind in its nature, and it is the duty of each of us to take care that it does not absorb and pervert the whole character. In the moral night which has enveloped the world, nations have lived ignorant and careless of the interests of others, which they imperfectly saw. But the thick darkness is now scattered, and we begin to discern, all gilded by the beams of morning, the distant mountain peaks of other lands. We find that God has not placed us on this earth alone, that there are others equally with us, children of his protecting care. The curious spirit goes further, and while recognizing an inborn sentiment of attachment to the place of birth, inquires into the nature of the allegiance due to the state. According to the old idea, still too much received, man is made for the state, and not the state for man. Far otherwise is the truth. The state is an artificial body, intended for the security of the people. How constantly do we find in human history that the people have been sacrificed for the state to build the Roman name, to secure to England the trident of the sea. This is to sacrifice the greater for the less, for the false grandeur of earth, to barter life and the soul itself. Is it not clear that no dominion of the state, not even the state itself, is worth preserving at the cost of the lives and happiness of the people? It is not that I love country less, but humanity more, that now, on this national anniversary, I plead the cause of a higher and truer patriotism. Remember that you are men by a more sacred bond than you are citizens, that you are children of a common Father more than you are Americans, recognizing God as a common Father, the seeming diversities of nations, separated only by the accident of mountains, rivers, and seas, into those distinctions around which cluster the associations of country, all disappear, and the various people of the globe stand forth as brothers, members of one great human family. Discord in this family is treason to God, while all war is nothing else than civil war. In vain do we restrain this odious term, importing so much of horror to the petty dissensions of a single state. It belongs, as justly, to the feuds between nations when referred to the umbrage of battle. The soul trembles aghast as we contemplate fields drenched in fraternal gore, where the happiness of homes has been shivered by the unfriendly arms of neighbors, and kinsmen have sunk beneath the steel nerved by a kinsman's hand. This is civil war, which stands accursed forever in the calendar of time. But the muse of history and the faithful record of the future transactions of nations, inspired by a new and loftier justice, and touched to finer sensibilities, shall extend to the general sorrows of universal man the sympathy still profusely shed for the selfish sorrow of country, and shall pronounce international war to be civil war, and the partakers in it as traitors to God and enemies to man.